All right, today we are going to talk through this Bell-work question. We started off by doing those other two free response questions. If you're at home, I'll post a YouTube video going through both of those, talking through it at a little bit more length if you need to see how you did on the banana question and then the pipe question, because that is a part of your test on Thursday. But one of the things that we didn't cover in either of those was a question like this. Okay, the penguin population on an island is modeled by the differential equation P of t. There are 100,000 penguins on the island at t equals 0. The birth rate of penguins is this guy right here. This is the birth rate. Okay, then we've got d of t. That is the death rate of penguins per year. I'm always going to start by drawing a picture of what's going on here. Okay, so I got my little island right here. This is the penguin island. Very important to draw a good picture. It's going to be a penguin. Hang on. We're working on it. Got to draw him a nose and some feet. That's a pretty solid. Oh, his eye's a little big. But you get the idea. Okay, pretty solid penguin. It's important to make sure we got a penguin that is to scale. Okay, cool. What is B of t telling me? Birth rate. So in other words, I could call it the rate in. Okay, so we've got B of t, the birth rate. It is the rate in. Boom, I got that. Then I've got D of t. That's the death rate. So that is the rate out. Rate in, rate out. Don't overthink it. That's what we got. We've got a rate in, a rate out. Anything else you think would be important to label here? Yeah, we started with 100,000 penguins. Okay, so just having that language here is going to help me out a little bit just to make sure I know what's going on. I started with 100,000. That's a little picture, and that silly little picture is going to hopefully help set me up for success. To the nearest whole number, find the absolute minimum penguin population and the absolute maximum penguin population on this island from 0 to 40. And then show the analysis that leads to your answers, or in other words, justify. We are finding absolute maximums and minimums of penguins, and they want me to justify it. How do I justify the absolute maximum or minimum amount of penguins? A table. Okay. Hopefully that is automatic now. You've done this enough. I'm going to leave a little bit of space here because up here I'm going to write what I'm plugging into. But over here it's time. Eventually this number right here is going to tell me the number of penguins. But I got to come up with a formula that's going to tell me how many penguins are on this island. This is the big one on your test. Okay, if you were to leave this one blank, you're not going to pass. Okay, you got to be able to do this part. So this is the number of penguins. This is going to get you 4 out of the 9 points on a test like this. Cool. We want to find out where maximums or minimums happen. What 2 places can maximums and minimums happen? Endpoints. 0, 40. Boom, got those 2. That's easy. Write them down first. It's super easy points. And critical points. Remember what a critical point is. A critical point is when the derivative is 0, or better in this question, when the rate is 0. How can I figure out the rate of penguins on this island? Subtract them. B of t, that's how many are coming in, minus how many are going out. B of t minus D of t is going to tell me the number of penguins. Okay? If we wanted to get fancy up here, it said P of t is the number of penguins. So technically, this is P prime. P prime equals B of t minus D of t. You don't have to write that out here, but that's what it is. Okay, because P told me the number of penguins. This is the rate of penguins that I just discovered. What do I want to do with B of t minus D of t? I want to find critical points. So what do I want to know about this rate? Set it equal to 0. If you wrote B of t minus D of t equals 0, that scores you a point. I want to know when the rates are equal. You could also say B of t equals D of t, because that would be the rate is 0 as well. I like writing it this way because it's going to be easier to figure out. In my calculator, I go to Y1. I typed in what that is. Go ahead, take a second if you haven't done it yet. Type in Y1 and Y2. You can do 2 things here. Okay, if you want to, you can just graph b of t and d of t. So you could just do y1 and y2. The problem with that is if you just set them equal to each other and find when they intersect, then you got to find when they intersect. And you might have to do some crazy zoom in, zoom out stuff. Okay? So instead, I did y3. So y3 is when y1 minus y2. All right? Now I'm just looking for when that is 0. I know when they're going to intersect, when their y value is 0. I'm about to graph it. So notice that when I graphed it, okay, I only care about y3. So I went ahead and turned these off. So if you go over the equal sign, see right now how it's bold. If I go over top of it and hit enter, now it won't graph those anymore. It's just going to graph me y3, which is what I want. Okay, if I go zoom 6, my regular zoom, I can't see anything because I got to change my window for what's my min and max going to be for my x. 0 and 40. There's a lot of penguins. I'm guessing more than 10, but that's okay. We could adjust those if we wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and hit graph. Again, this is why I like just setting them equal to each other, because all I see is almost like vertical line. All right, but that's all I care about. I want to know when it's equal to 0, so I'm going to go second, calculate. What am I going to calculate? The 0, so I'm going to go number 2. I got to do left bound and right bound, and if you're trying to mess with your arrows here, it's going to be really hard to find them. So all I care about is the left bound. I just want to pick something to the left of this. What is a number that you know is to the left of this right here? 20. Great. It already says left bound is 20, so I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, notice that it draws my little arrow up here, or for my updated calculator, I got a line. I need a number that I know is to the right of that line. 40. I'm going to go 39 just so we can actually see the number. So it says right bound. You can just type in the number 39. Hit enter. Cool. There's my arrow right there. Yep, it's definitely in between it, so I'm going to hit enter again. There is my answer, 34.657. That is my T. 34.567. That is my critical point. That's what else is going to go on my graph. Now, that is not the answer to my question, okay? That is the time. And so you do not want to round this thing in the middle of your problem. So you have one of two options. Option 1, write down all of those decimals. That's the easy option. Write down 34.657359. Write them all down. You're not going to mess it up. Okay. What I like doing instead is I'm going to go ahead and hit second quit. Since I just found that X value, I can just hit the store button right here. I'm going to take that answer that I just found and I'm going to save it as alpha A. And if I do that, there's my 34.657 number. You don't have to do that. You could have just written down the decimal. Everybody with me to this point? I need to know the number of penguins. What calculation is going? This is a rate. What calculation is going to tell me the number of penguins? How do I go from a rate to an amount? Integrate it. What else do I have to think about when I integrate here? I had 100,000 penguins to start with. That is my starting amount of penguins. I'm going to add to that the integration. When am I going to start to integrate? 0 until when? Not necessarily 40. It's the time. It's whatever these numbers are. So I'm going to go from 0 to t. And what am I integrating? The rate in minus the rate out. So I called it P prime over here. If you want to call it P prime, you can. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and just say B of t minus D of t. That is what I'm integrating. That's going to get me my answer. How many penguins are there going to be when t is equal to 0? 100,000. At the start, we got 100,000. Then I got to do it at 34.567. So in my calculator, I'm typing 100,000 plus math 9. I'm integrating it from 0 to 34.567. You could write in that whole decimal, or what other thing could I put here? Alpha A. Boom, there's my value. And then I'm going to integrate which equation? You could do y1 minus y2, or I already saved it as y3, which is y1 minus y2. I type that in, dx, I hit enter. That is my answer. It did say I could round this to the nearest whole penguin, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. 139,167. It did say round it. We do not round unless they tell me to, but they said to the nearest whole number. Boom, there's my first one. To find it at 40, I just do it again. It's 100,000. Plus math 9. This time I'm integrating from 0 until 40. Everything else about this problem is the same. Alpha F4, Y3, dt. Hit enter. 133,058 penguins. The two questions are find the absolute minimum population and maximum population. Absolute, so we'll just call it the max penguins. Equals what? What is the maximum amount of penguins? 139,167. That's the maximum amount of penguins. Okay, the minimum amount of penguins. What's the smallest my population ever got? 100,000. So the start was the smallest. Here's what you're looking for on this problem. Okay, here's how you would have scored your points. You got 1 point for doing this right here, for identifying that value, but you have to write the B of t minus D of t. You got 1 point for your table. You got 1 point for each answer. So that gave us 4 points here. That's huge. Okay, this is going to be the difference between you getting a good score on your test on Friday and not, or Thursday. Okay, this is going to be the difference between you maybe passing the AP exam. So next year when you're in college, you being able to hang out in your room while your roommate goes to Calc 101. Okay, and they have to hate that class. You get to get a test out of it, maybe based on that question alone. Okay, make sure you're good at that. Questions there? Yes, sir. That on top? Oh, yeah, you need to write that on top. You don't have to write each one. It's a table. It's implied that I'm plugging in the T, but you need to write this right here because that's how you're finding those values. Depending on the test, sometimes that will score you one of your points. Any